It is time for your favorite Android podcast from the crew of blindandroidusers.com. Kick back, relax, and enjoy another fine episode from these Google fanboys and gals as they navigate Android from a blindness perspective. And now, here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome to episode 113 of the Blind Android Users podcast. I'm Ed Green and I'm joined by my co-hosts Warren Carr, Austin Pinto, John Dyer, Fee Dunn, and this week's special guest Will Murgatroyd. And we are coming to you on Saturday, the 4th of February, 2023. This week we have our usual announcements from Austin. In our spotlight section, we're going to talk about everything that was revealed at the Samsung Galaxy Unpacked event on the 1st of February, last Wednesday. We have an app of the week, and that is Express VPN, and I do a demonstration of that and talk a little bit about VPNs more generally. We have a tip of the week from Warren. Then we have the next in our series of Talkback highlights from John Dyer. And we have an Android journey from Will Murgatroyd, who sent that in, but he's here to answer questions and talk to us about some of the stuff he raised in that. Well, how are we all, Warren? What's going on?
It's a beautiful weekend, and I wish I were John. I'll be celebrating on the street out there with all that Samsung thing going on. Of course, I love Samsung, but I think John is the king of Samsung. So even though I'm excited, but not near as excited as John would be, we're having a great weather here today, and it's kind of going to be feeling more like a springtime for the first time. We're going to be hitting like 42 degrees, and there may be a flurry or two, but at least it's not that very cold. So I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to getting this episode done and edited and all of that, and then maybe go for a little walk if I can, if it's not too bad out there. So kind of excited about it, and that's what's going on.
Literally no one believed you when you said you loved Samsung then, by the way. We all know where your heart lies. It's
No, I
misplaced,
do.
obviously.
I
No,
do.
your heart belongs to Fisher-Price. It could never be prized out of its underwhelming clutches.
I
We
got
know
myself
this.
prized out. I love Samsung.
It could
You
never be
don't.
prized out, Ed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is literally no evidence of you loving Samsung. That S21 is Julia's. Everything you have is Fisher-Price. Your love of Samsung dates from about 2013 when you had an S4.
Well, it's not bad to have a secret lover, so Samsung is there, my secret lover. So I have that S21 to prove that indeed I love Samsung and slowly getting Fisher priced out.
Excellent. Austin, what's happening in Mumbai?
So last week we had spoken about reversing the heating system and the AC, and I think it automatically reversed because Mumbai is getting very warm now. The winters are over, and one more nice news is the next upcoming week is my birthday week, so it's preparing
Ooh.
time. Yeah, the 9th of Feb. So
Are you getting a new
that is the good
phone?
news. No, I'm not getting a new phone. I've already got the 6A. I'm waiting for a 7A now.
Oh dear, more Fisher-Price.
Yeah.
We're going to uncover more of it as we go around the virtual attendees as well. Well, happy birthday for next week, and glad the automatic schedule kicked in to reverse the heating system. John Boy, what's going on in Virginia?
It's good here in Virginia. I actually had it was a long week, but it was a good week. My son's still not feeling good, and he's got a little bit of a fever, but I think all in all we're doing pretty good. And like Warren mentioned, I did, and I'm sure nobody's surprised, I pre-ordered a phone this week, so we'll talk about that when we get to that point in the podcast, I guess.
I was more surprised when the sun set in the west yesterday, to be honest. Like that was more surprising than you pre-ordering a phone from an event we should discuss later.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
Um,
iPhoner.
I went for a walk earlier on, and the birds were singing away. It wasn't sunny though; it's been a bit of a grey old day today. But yeah, here in London, it's not like really warm, but it's not freezing cold. Although it's supposed to be next week. Oh well.
Again?
I was Yeah, apparently it's gonna cool down again tomorrow. Hopefully not
Uh,
quite as much as it was, but yes. Top temperature tomorrow is 8 degrees. Yeah. Anyway, I've been moonlighting on another podcast, but I did promote this one. The RNIB Tech Talk podcast. This week's episode, I was on that, and you can find it on any podcast apps that you normally use. And my bit was 18 minutes in. So if anyone heard me on there and is now listening to us because of that, a very big warm welcome from us here. And yeah, it's been busy week for me doing various things. And
oh.
London is good. I like London, and especially with all these lovely birds singing away and telling me that spring's coming soon.
Yeah, they haven't abandoned Twitter for Mastodon, have they? They're still tweeting.
I don't think Elon Musk has any control over the actual birds, does he? I don't think he can control what they do and when they sing.
Well, no, and they're loyal to the tweeting platform.
They are.
Fee, he has some balloons out there he can catch them with, and they may be nets catching
Oh
the birds.
no! You better not bring those to London.
And Will, how are you?
I am doing very well, thanks, Ed. All the better, to be honest. Exciting podcast. So thank you so much for allowing me to come on here. I've been listening to you guys for quite a few months, and I'm so glad that you've finally converted me to Android. I think by this point in the olden days, and you'll find out why in my Android journey later on, I would have gone, do you know what? I'm smashing into the floor. But actually, I've persevered and I love it. But no, all is good with me in Luton. So I guess we're not too far from you, iPhoner.
No?
And yeah, went for a park run this morning. Walked for about 45 minutes. I do it every Saturday, as well as a couch to 5K running program. Was almost on track for a personal best, which I think it was like 44:35 this morning. But yeah, all is good in Luton. All is good.
If it's a run walk, is that a walk
I
or a
mean,
one?
you can do anything at park run, to be honest. Fee. You can run, you can walk, you can cycle, take your kids, take the dogs, anything you want, really.
No, you can do anything at park run. You wouldn't catch me doing it. I think it's
Okay,
very
one can do
impressive.
anything at park run. One
Yeah.
who would like to partake.
I think it's a
So-
nice thing. And Fee,
Yeah.
one of these days, I think you should go out there. I would love to be able to do that. When I lived in Denver, we used to have something walk and roll. And what that meant was that we had people in wheelchair and we had people like my knucklehead without canes and stuff like that. It was all for the blind. I mean, rather for the disabled. And so it was a beautiful thing. And we did that in the summertime, not in the wintertime.
It sounds walk and roll sounds like what you do when you go to the pub.
Yeah, we walked and rolled.
Yeah. No, it sounds good actually, but
I
no,
like that, Will. That's a nice thing to do.
yeah,
And
it
most
is.
especially early in the morning in the wintertime, you gotta be
Yeah.
nice and strong to be able to do that.
I mean, it gets you out, but again, what's the what's the alternative? Just sit in your room and doing absolutely nothing, So and it's
Going
a nice
to the pub, that's an alternative.
I do
suppose,
things.
yeah. I
Just
mean,
yeah,
as I'm a student, yes.
I do things, just not running.
Yeah,
it's
it's not
good.
for everyone, but again, you don't have to do that.
That's good,
I
though.
like swimming though, and
Oh,
some
same.
people hate that. So I like
No,
swimming.
that's a good one too. Although I
And-
don't, I'll sink to the bottom. But I'm glad you do, Fee.
Yeah, well, I'm yet to test. I'll have to let you all know how it goes. When I next swim with the Galaxy Watch on, because I haven't done that yet. I did it with the old one, but that was a few years ago, and it'll be different now. Much better, I expect.
Yeah, let us
Cool.
know what happens.
Yeah.
And Will, obviously, you're here for the Android journey, but chip in throughout if you want to talk about the Galaxy stuff or anything else we've
No,
got.
of course.
So
I have used Samsung before, so
cool.
you can edit this out, but I don't like them.
You don't?
Oh
I don't like
no,
Samsung.
you just
Ever
hurt
since
John's feelings, Mr.
Oh.
Murgatroyd.
ever since Samsung Talkback came into existence, nah, abolish that.
I love
think we'll
Oh,
chip
Samsung.
in.
you
I don't think
liked
we'll
you liked the voice assistant then more?
To be honest, I was fine with. It's funny. I started off by using voice assistant when I first got a Samsung back in 2018, and then obviously I learned. Obviously it wasn't the same as it is now, but I learned how to use Talkback in the end. And to be honest, I'm quite content with Google Talkback. And then obviously when Samsung's Talkback came along, I was like, oh, no, this is just nah. You can't edit this out, Warren. I'm not allowed to be so to be critical.
No, I'm leaving it in for the folks to have
Yeah, we
fun
should
with it.
leave it
So
in. It's honest.
I'm not
I
gonna
don't
edit
mind
it out.
Samsung. I don't mind Samsung Talkback.
But
Actually,
you
on
make
my
it,
on my
Will.
newer phone, it's fine because it recognizes the multi-finger taps. But on an older phone, it isn't very nice because it doesn't recognize the multi-finger taps. So
Oh,
half the stuff doesn't work. So what phone were you using it on?
I had a Samsung A13 and 22, I think it was on, but
Yeah, that is why you hated the new Samsung Talkback then.
but the A
Because you had
series
older
forward isn't meant to be good.
phones. Yeah, that's why. Unfortunately, they
Okay,
didn't let those features
Will.
work on older phones, which was annoying. Anyway, yeah.
I was gonna say that you're gonna get some hate mail for, not liking Samsung. So if that happens, that's your problem, not mine. So just keep that in mind.
I literally haven't had any hate mail since I said all my stuff about Fisher Price. You don't get any. I
Yeah,
have
for
quite people
anyone
saying it's very funny.
I mean, if you can
anyone
if you can convert me fee, then that'll be
well, anyone who's a new listener may not know that Fisher Price is Ed's I was gonna say affectionate term, but it isn't really affectionate, is it? Ed's term for Google Pixel phones. He calls them Fisher Price.
Yeah, just a jealous
Oh,
bone.
right.
Just a jealous bone. That's all.
Well, we know how much you love your Fisher Prices, Warren. So they have plenty of advocates on here, and even Austin's defected. I've got a 6A, honestly.
Well,
No,
I'm
I
getting
got a
priced out.
6A. I got the 6A so that I can criticize it.
Oh, good. That's all right then. That's fine.
And I'll get the
I'm all right with
7A so that I can criticize it.
Excellent. Fair enough. Good.
Wait, you're gonna get the next model up. You're not gonna wait a couple 2 or 3 years. You're gonna get the next model up just so you can criticize. Nah, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
He's a
Don't believe
lover.
that.
He's a
I
lover
think he
of the
likes it
Pixel
really.
phone.
Yeah, he likes
It's
it really.
another thing to come here and pretend, oh, Fisher Price. But in reality, oh, we love it.
Ed even
Austin.
got one. Ed's got one as well.
That's for
Yeah,
installing
yeah.
betas.
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
install developer previews or betas without actually having one, though.
Oh, yeah.
So mine will.
Yeah. Tell
Mine
me
is a
another
5.
lie.
Mine is a 5.
I think-
That's certainly
I
not
think the
Tell
upgrading
me
it
another
until.
lie.
I think the 6A is the most buggiest phone they ever launched.
Does it bug you then, Austin?
Yeah, there are also bugs like the fingerprint not working or not recognizing half the time and all those things.
No, you need to upgrade your fingers. You need new fingers.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Thank you very
can
much,
just buy
Ed.
new fingers.
I think that's what the problem is. Austin, keep those fingers, in place. All right.
Yeah, if anyone's having problems with
they
their
don't
fingerprint
stay in
sensors,
place.
if anyone's got a problem with their fingerprint sensors on their phone, the chances are they need to upgrade their fingers.
Exactly,
That'll be what
Mumba.
the
Thank
issue
you.
is.
My exact words. I just didn't know how to put it through without being a little brush.
Whereas I didn't care. Let's actually get some podcasting done then. Austin, what announcements have we got this week?
So we don't have anything related to the podcast, but a big story has happened in India that is the CFI, the Competition Forum of India, has fined Google a huge amount, and that is because they are not giving the ability to users and more freedom to manufacturers to install or uninstall Google apps. So users cannot uninstall, let's say, Maps or Play Store or anything that Google ships with their phone. And the most dangerous thing that is going to happen now is all new upcoming phones are going to come without Google apps or with very manufacturers are going to have the freedom. If they want, they can install some apps. They want, they can they install none of the Google apps. This includes, unfortunately, manufacturers can ship phones without installing Play Store. Now, if some other authorities from other companies, other countries find Google the same, imagine what will happen to us, because they might ship phones without talkback. So that might be a really big danger for us now upcoming. And it's going to be a very security risk also, because there won't be Play Store and people will install apps from anywhere. And another news from India, then the podcast crew can comment on it. Another news from India is that Coca-Cola is launching their own phone with the brand of Realme. So Realme is branding or launching a phone under the brand of Coca-Cola. So that is it from the India news. Now the crew can comment.
Well, I bet
Is
I bet it caused a lot of fizz when the Coca-Cola announcement was made.
Yeah.
Hey, very good.
do we think they'll do it, or will they bottle it at the last minute and not bottle?
I hope they don't,
Yeah,
because
maybe
that
they
sounds delicious.
maybe they should sell the phones in a bottle.
Like a message? I know you sell messages in
Yeah.
bottles, don't you? The
Yeah,
police.
well, if it had messages on it when you buy it, yeah, you could have a message in a bottle, and you could have, you know, you could open it and Sting starts singing to you or something.
But what about the
But
CFI news? That is a big news.
so
I think
is
that what's going
Talkback?
on here, though, is that yeah, I would love to be able to uninstall some stuff that I don't want. I think it should be like Windows, for example. I get a computer and there's certain apps or programs on there that I'm not interested in, and I don't care whether they're coming from my manufacturer, Sony or whoever that manufacturer is. I don't want it. Let me have the ability to uninstall it. And I think that's what should be done instead of saying, hey, it shouldn't come with Google Play system or whatever. The problem is that, as it is, a lot of people don't care about TalkBack. And I think that those of us who are blind, if you're in India and your phones don't come with TalkBack, then it kind of sets you back instead of actually pushing you forward. So I'm not sure that this is something, while I love the concept, but yet we have to be careful, um, in the same whatever breath, say, hey, but you have to install TalkBack on there or whatever. But I don't know, man. It's a very kind of gray area here. I don't know if to celebrate or not to celebrate, but um, just make those things uninstallable, meaning I should be able to uninstall those things.
I mean,
Now
Microsoft
Google,
wrote the book on being hit with antitrust, didn't they? So where can you uninstall Edge these days or not? I haven't tried.
I don't think you can uninstall Edge. No.
No. So it seems as though CFI has gone a bit further than anyone ever went with Microsoft then, because, you'll remember, Warren, from the 90s that they got hit with everything over Internet Explorer, didn't they, in the US? But it seems like the CFI judgment has gone further in respect of Google than anyone went in respect of Microsoft, if they're saying these apps have to be uninstallable.
It does go farther because, even though the Internet Explorer wasn't made the center front and whatever, but it's still or was still an integral part of the operation of Windows. So many things were tied to the Internet Explorer, whether one liked it or not. And so the Android phone is about the Play Store. And so if none of the Play Store is there or some of those frameworks, then I don't know. I'm just looking out for my blind people. That's the one that matters most to me because I want to be able to independently set up my phone on my own rather than going back to the olden days. Hey, can you please help me set up or go download accessibility? And well, if they don't put in Play Store there, how are you going to get it?
Yeah, but I wonder, is Talkback seen as an app anymore? Because like when you switch it on now, it's in settings, isn't it? It's not like you don't open a separate app like you used to do with Brailleback, for example. It's just in the settings, isn't it?
It's a system
I
app.
think it is an app, so
Yeah,
you
but it
can
comes under
you
apps.
can uninstall it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
So I
but
hope they don't
Not yet,
uninstall
but you
that.
mandate,
can, I think.
Yeah.
this mandate, the fee is that manufacturers could choose not to have those things, and so things relating to disability, though, a lot of these things or a lot of the manufacturers, this would be one of the ones that they will get rid of. You see phones
Yeah,
coming from China that will have everything else but not talkback, and that's my fear.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
how are
Austin,
you going to get
sorry.
apps easily without the Play Store? How are you going to download the Play
Very
Store
good point.
without having it? Like, I don't know how that's going to work.
Well, there are other Play stores on Android. You can sideload apps. There's F-Droid. You can get stuff from APK Mirror. I mean,
Yeah,
and,
but
and
if you
uh,
just want an easy life and you just want Play Store, why shouldn't you have it? As long as they let you uninstall it, I
oh,
don't see what's wrong with it having
well,
it.
but they're not saying you can't ship a phone with Play Store. Austin's just saying there's a risk. I think that
Yeah, there is
what
a
this judge,
freedom. There is freedom given to manufacturers that if they want, they can ship the phones with Google Apps. If they don't want, then they can ship without Google Apps.
yeah, and your answer, your recourse, if you do want the Play Store, is not to buy the phone that doesn't have it. Go buy one that does. That's what you do, and then manufacturers won't do it. So I think Austin's pointing out a risk. He's not saying that the CFI are saying you can't
Oh, that
ever
they
ship
have
a
to.
phone with a Play
Yeah.
Store. No, it's just they might decide to.
It'll be interesting to see what happens because it's like unintended consequences, isn't it? I mean, since the EU data laws came in, every time you go to a web page, pretty much you have to accept cookies, and it's very tedious. And somebody didn't think that through. So sometimes there are these unintended consequences that
There are.
people don't actually think through, and then they realize afterwards, oh, whoops, what have we done? You know,
You get good unintended consequences too. When lockdown happened, our local brewery had no pubs to deliver to, so the owner brought kegs of beer to my house. Quite a good
yeah.
unintended consequence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, worked for me.
Whether your liver thought so.
Well, what was really funny, we were on to my in-laws when he brought one consignment. And he said he's got quite a loud, booming Welsh voice. And he goes, "Do you know you're my best customer?" And our in-laws are like, "Isn't that a bit embarrassing?" I'm like, "No, not really. I'm all right with this."
No, it's
Yeah,
not
well.
embarrassing. That means he likes his stuff. That's all.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not ashamed of
But wait,
liking a
how big were
particular
these
food.
consignments? Were they like whole barrels of beer?
No, only like a few 5-litre kegs, so not.
That's quite a lot of beer.
Now we turn to our spotlight section, and this week was John Dyer's favourite day of the year. It fell on February the 1st this year, and it was the Samsung Galaxy Unpacked event. So I think it's only fair that I pass, without further ado, to John to talk about his favourite day.
Hey, well, I don't have too much to say. I think Warren is going to fill us in on the history of these Galaxy S phones, but I'll just start by saying that yes, I did pre-order the S23. I ended up agreeing to trade in my Galaxy Fold 4, which I'll be honest, and if you've been following this, you've seen a lot of people complaining about it. Samsung is not offering the great trade-in values that they used to offer. So that's been kind of a downside to this whole thing, but I still did it. I still agreed to trade in my Galaxy Fold. So We'll see if I go through with it or if I end up returning the S23. But if history holds up, I'll just keep the newest phone.
And Warren, you were going to do a little bit of an overview, a nostalgic look back, weren't you, at the S series and how it's got to where it's got to.
So before Warren starts, actually, I really like the laptops that they launched. So in total, Samsung launched the 3 phones in the S series lineup and 5 new laptops. So those laptops were nice specs. Some of them had Intel i9 8 series processor with, I think, 20 or 40 cores or something. So that laptop is really good for video rendering and nice screen. And everything is back with the stylus now. Even their 360 series of laptops is, and the S series, at least the S Ultra is back with the stylus. So that is a good thing that they launched.
Are these Windows laptops or Android or Chromebook?
No,
or
Windows
what
laptops.
Kind of, they're Windows. Oh, okay.
I would want you to get me one of those, Austin. I'm kind of salivating for one of those.
I don't
They're
think I would
really,
like to
really
use a
pricey.
stylus.
$2,200.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think some
Stylus,
of them
though,
are
that
up to
would
$3,000 for like if you want the Ultra like maxed out.
a stylus would annoy me though. I don't want to use a stylus.
Well, just leave it in its silo. You don't have to pull it out.
And use it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the history, though, of the S series. We're not talking about the history of Samsung as a company or the phones. I'm not talking about when they jumped into the phone business. Rather, though, I'm focusing here on the S series, which has become the mainstay, the flagship, the face of Samsung, if you will. And so back in 2010, the first item that came was the Galaxy S, and this sold some 25 million units. There were also variants of the device, including the Galaxy S Plus and the Galaxy S Advance. The device featured, though, a physical home, and this was flanked by 2 capacitive buttons, one to the right and one to the left, something that we're familiar with today. It also featured a 4-inch display. And at that time, though, kind of people were thinking, oh, this is kind of a little bit large, a little bit bigger than what we had at the time. The phone was powered by the Samsung Exynos 3110 and also by the Android 2.1 Eclair out of the box. And that's what it came with. And then it was updated to Android 2.3 that would be gingerbread. For storage, though, it has like 16 or 8 GB. And for the power that, keeping it running, a removable battery. We're talking about removable battery here, Ed. Something I really, really like. Uh, I know I'm trying to kind of jump ahead here. But it had a 1500 milliamp battery that keeps the lights on. And for RAM, how about RAM? It had like 512 MB, and that was kind of good at the
Oh,
time.
bless.
Yeah. Blah, that's all I say. It also had what? It has like a VGA, camera on the back of it. That was the Galaxy S.
And did the fact it shipped with Eclair make it the cream of the crop?
Exactly. My point. Thank you for that plug-in. So next, though, we come to the Galaxy S2 that was introduced in February of 2011. Just like its predecessor, this one was also made of, you guessed it, plastic. I love plastic. Absolutely beautiful thing. Also has a removable battery, but instead of the 1500, this one had 1650, so 1650 milliamp battery. 8 megapixels. That's better with the same capacitive buttons that we've come to know. And this time, though, this one had like a 4.3-inch and has a Super AMOLED screen. That's beautiful. This
For any
time,
current pixels are capable of being mega instead of just mediocre. They might not be called Fisher Price.
Come on, lay off my phone, okay? This time, though, unlike the first one, that is, unlike the Galaxy S, there were two different chips powering the device. If you live outside the US, you had the Exynos powering the device, and then you have the Snapdragon in the US. So if you were, say, in Europe and other places, you had the Exynos there that powered that device. And so that's how that one went. Um, it would receive what up to the Android version. I think it got up to Jelly Bean for that one. That was one of the longest ones Samsung supported for some reason. And Samsung sold some 40 million of these devices. I can't believe they sold that many, but of course, people didn't have phones yet. And so everyone was buying. They sold 40 million of this. Let's move next on, though, to this time talk about 2012. And with the dawning of 2012, we're talking about the Galaxy S3. And this was announced in May of that year. The S3 was the biggest phone in many ways, and with a 4.8-inch screen. It also had a 2100 milliamp battery. So you see how the drift is, or the trend is going on. Bigger battery, bigger screen, and all that. And powering the device in the way of a chipset, we got the Exynos 4412 if you're outside the US. And then if you're in the US or North American market, you got that Snapdragon 4 powered, which powered the device. And then next, the device also had an 8 megapixel camera. And so we're getting better here. You see the trend, we kept getting better and better. And then also have the same capacitive buttons. You got the home key, and then you have all of that. And Android Ice Cream was the one that powered this device. So out of the box, it came with Android Ice Cream and ended up in Jelly Bean 4.3. That was what it ended up at. And that was the last official update this one had. Like its siblings, though, before it too was made of, you guessed it, plastic. And Samsung sold some 70 million units of the Galaxy S3. I think probably this was the best-selling phone Samsung ever made. This phone would cement the S series and place Samsung on the map as having a contender for the Fruitvale. You know what I'm talking about. Next, we come to my favorite one that I had, and that was the Galaxy S4, announced back in March of 2013, resembling the S3 in so many ways, though. The device was also made of plastic, sporting the physical home key, just like they all did, and flanking it with those capacitive buttons on the left and right, the recent apps and the back key. It continued to get bigger, and so this time it had a bigger screen at a 5-inch. So you see, we moved from 4.7 or 4.8. Now we're at 5 inches in the way of the screen, and also full HD Super AMOLED display. That's what it had, and keeping the engine churning was the Exynos 5410 in some regions outside of the US, and then Snapdragon 600 powering it within the US and also in the UK. So Samsung was doing something good here. Android 4.2 Jelly Bean was the one that came out of the box with this phone, and it ended up officially with Lollipop 5.2, and 2600 milliamp battery power kept the lights on. The phone sported a 13 megapixel. See, we keep getting bigger and bigger in the way of the camera. Because of time constraints, though, I'm not going to be talking about some of the other ones with specs and all of that, because we could do a whole episode on those. So I'm just going to talk about what comes next In 2014, we made the Galaxy S5, and this was the first device from Samsung to have a fingerprint reader incorporated into the home key, the first to be IP67 rated device. And of course, it was plastic. And I might even add that this is the very first device that gave us the face detection. So those of you, you and I who are blind, for the first time, we got a phone that has the ability of face detection, letting us know if there's any face within the camera or how many faces are there. So the Galaxy S5 was the very first one that gave us that capability. This phone would also be the last S series that had a removable battery.
Something we probably should explain to listeners who don't know is IP67. That means it's waterproof-ish, doesn't it?
Thank you so much, Fee. Yes, indeed. And so it's the first phone that had that water and dust resistant, and it was plastic. So all this argument about, oh, you put in removable battery is going to compromise that. No, the Galaxy S5 was plastic and had a removable battery. Next, we are up to 2015, and we meet the S6. This time there were two models, the S6 and the S6 Edge. And in August of that same year, Samsung would debut a third as S6 Edge Plus. This would mark the beginning of the moving away from plastic to the metal and glass. It's worth noting here, too, though, that Samsung removed the SD card. There goes my baby. And they took away my SD card in the S6, and there was a backlash for doing that.
But the SD cards have gone. Like they had a brief revival after the backlash, but they've died, haven't they?
That's sad. I'm sad about that.
Yeah, I was sad that you can't get a horse and cart anymore, but then I discovered the tube.
My S20 FE does have a memory card in it.
Exactly.
So some of them do.
Exactly. Next, we are up to 2016, and we say hello to the Galaxy S7. And like the previous year, we have two models. So we got the S7 and the S7H. The S7H Plus never really came to fruition, though, even though Samsung wanted to, but it didn't make a splash. Next, we say hello to 2017, and here comes the Galaxy S8. And we have two models. We had the regular and the Plus. With this duo, the fingerprint now moved to the back of the phone instead of being on the home key like we had on the S6 and the S5. Moving along, this time we're coming to 2018, and there's Fee's phone. We're talking about the duo
Yay!
now, that beautiful S9 and the S9 Plus. Both devices were identical, but the S9 sported a single camera as to the double cameras found on the S9 Plus. Next up is 2019 now, and we're talking the Galaxy S10. And this time, you know what? We got four, not two, not three, but four. These are the S10e with its fingerprint embedded in the power button, the regular S10. Then we have the S10 Plus, and we had the first 5G phone from Samsung as the S10 5G. That's what we had in 2019 from Samsung. And it's the first time also that we have the in-glass or in-display fingerprint. The S10e has the one in the power, and these guys had it the in-glass fingerprint reader.
which I think is a mistake. I wish they They never went. I mean, they've gotten a lot better over the years. They work pretty well now, but it's just been a frustration. It's like if something's working perfectly fine, why get rid of it? So like
the old one was easier, wasn't it? It was
yes.
easier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a big fan of the capacitive, fingerprint readers as to the in glass. I mean, it's just you can't. I don't know, guys. You can compare. No matter what you do, it seems the capacitive ones are kind of a tad better.
And you can feel where it is as well.
I think it's a logistics thing. So most people use their thumb. They're using their thumb on their screen. That's why it's where it is.
Do you know, I've never used my thumb to do stuff on my screen.
No,
But
because we
maybe
use our
that's
phones differently. But like sighted people will use their thumbs, and that's why the fingerprint sensor is where it is. Because you can just do it
but
with the finger that's on the screen.
I guess for us, especially, I mean, you and I, Ed, we grew up reading Braille. I know not everyone listening did, but I know because I knew you at school. We both grew up reading Braille, so that's probably why we use our phones with our fingers rather than our thumbs, because we've realised that they're more agile, really,
I
aren't they,
use
than
my
thumbs?
thumb for my fingerprint reader
Yeah.
because it covers the whole surface, so it's kind of easier. So you're not missing necessarily. I don't know.
I use my thumb all the time on the phone. Like I couldn't imagine use. I mean, obviously, I use the fingers for certain gestures, like the scrolling gestures, and but I couldn't imagine using my fingers to actually, scroll left and right, sort of thing. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Oh, I do.
literally use my finger. Yeah, I don't use my thumb either.
Another thing that made the S10 5G stand out was the fact that it had 4 cameras on the back. See the trend? Next, we greet the S20 and we move out to 2020 now. And this time we have 3 phones. We have S20, S20 Plus, and the S20 Ultra. All 3 of these phones are 5G capable phones. And
What, the
oh,
S20 ones we're talking about?
yes, exactly. Exactly. And their plastic sister, the S20 FE would debut. And that's the one you have, right? Fee, the
I do,
S20?
and so does Doug. But
Yeah.
it is not 5G, this phone. There was a 5G version, but I don't have it.
Yeah. No, the 5G version, I think, is North American. Other places had like the regular LTE. But that one came, the summer of that year. And so, unlike the other ones, I mean, this is a flagship budget phone, um, and they had to cut corners somewhere, so they gave it a plastic body instead. Next, chugging along, though, we move on to 2021, and we say hello to the S21 series. And this time, we also have 3 sisters: the S21, S21 Plus, and the S21 Ultra. These 3 were announced in January. That was the earliest Samsung ever announced any phone. And so something was happening here. The S21, though, unlike its sisters, is, you guessed it, plastic. That's what I got. I got a 21 plastic because I'm kind of being nostalgic. And so I went back and tried to fish out some S21 device. Now I have a plastic phone. Moving along, we say hello to the S22 in 2022. And this time also we have 3 phones: S22 regular, S22 Plus, and S23 Ultra. The S22 Ultra will stand in a class by itself. Why? As it combines a feature that was formerly exclusive to the Note line, and that was the S Pen. This time we have it integrated in there, giving you that productivity. So if you're missing the Note, you have it here. Combining both the Ultra and the Note, you have your S Pen.
So that's a stylus we're talking about, yeah?
Exactly. And that now brings us to the one that we're going to talk about, of course. And we're talking about the current version, and that's the S23 in 2023. And of course, we have 3 sisters as well. We got the regular, the plus, and the ultra. John, you got the ultra. How about you kick us on to what happened here? Let's talk about some of the features or some of the things that we like about it. I mean, we haven't had them. We don't have them in hand yet, but we've read enough about them or listened to what Samsung had to say about them and some of the mysterious things that, for some reason, were not included. Now, satellite, I'm looking at you. Samsung, what happened here? John?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll be honest, not it's not definitely not worth the upgrade if you have an S22 Ultra. It's very similar. In fact, I think it might be the exact same size and shape. Um, it has a little bit better cameras. It has a 200 megapixel camera now. The optical image stabilization is improved in the cameras, but for most blind people don't care about that sort of thing. Um, you know, it's it's basically identical to the S22, but with the new processor. So it is going to be a little more efficient, supposedly. Only time will tell. But yeah, so it's really just a slight upgrade.
And what size did you go for, John? I saw when Samsung emailed me, they were offering me the 512 for the price of 256. And the offer I got, I didn't exercise that offer, but
Yes, I got the 512. So they were offering for all the pre-orders, and they've done this for a few years now. They'll give you the bump up, which actually is good for the S22 Ultra because not only do you get 512 for storage, but you also get 12 megabyte or 12 gigabytes of memory rather than 8, which is what the base S22 Ultra starts with.
And how do you get such offers? Is it because you bought from them before, so that's why they send them?
No, it's just anybody who pre-orders. Basically, if you buy the phone before it comes out, then they'll usually hook you up in some way. They'll either give you free accessories or give you more trade-in than they would normally would, or something along those lines.
and I got it
But
via a
Ed, you
newsletter.
had an email though, didn't you?
Yeah, so I signed up. I had to a newsletter that Samsung do, so I just signed up to that. I had my
okay.
first, well, not my first Android phone. My first Android phone that embarked me into here was a Samsung until I sold it. Well, I broke it first, then I got it fixed and sold it. My A90. But yeah, I signed up for their spam. I mean their newsletters then. So I occasionally get them.
Another thing, though, that I want to talk about regarding the S23 here, maybe this is one of the reasons why I try to go on there just for giggles on Samsung's side. I try to add the 128 to my cart. It will not. And I found out why that is. And I don't know what they're going to do if the pre order comes to a close. The reason behind this is that since the S23 runs on UFS 4.0, the word on the street is that UFS 4.0 does not support a 128 gig phone. And that's why, even if you choose, you want to get a 128, you're not going to get it. It'll default you to 256. So I'm kind of curious as to what Samsung is going to do when the pre-order season is over. So it's either someone is telling a lie that the 4.0 UFS 4.0 doesn't support 128. We'll see what happens, but it's a very interesting thing. And another thing that I don't like is that so this phone is capable. I mean, it's even purpose for Samsung's purposes, and it's called the Samsung platform or whatever the Snapdragon 8.2 Gen 8.2, and it kind of was repurposed to work well for Samsung, and yet they cut out the satellite connectivity, and the guy gave some reason, oh, we want reliability and all of that. I just don't know. That phone is capable of supporting that because that's the the Qualcomm variant that we talked about here on one of our episodes. I don't remember which one it was. We actually talked at length about the capability of this. And to see Samsung do this, I'm not happy with what happened. And it could be that maybe because Snapdragon or the guys from Qualcomm said this is going to be available, mid-year or whatever. So, what do you guys think about this misstep on Samsung's part? Um, I don't know.
What is
Can you just
UFS, Warren? What
Yes,
is
I was just going
UFS?
to ask the same what UFS is because I'm not sure.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the universal file storage system. And so Samsung was the one that started that. And I forgot to mention that the S6 was the first phone to come with that UFS.
But surely, if they're not doing a 128 gig phone, they just shouldn't have it in the choices. That's really
So,
stupid if they
so
are
they
doing
are
it.
so they are doing it, but it's because of the free upgrade promotion for pre-ordering. You'd have to really like go out of the way to get that version, and because it would be the same price as the 256 version. And I think what they're doing here is probably just reusing old, for lack of a better word, hard drives. The unit they use for storage is an older, slower version. So I think they're just trying to repurpose those in this generation. So when after pre-orders are over and the phone is out, and carriers are trying to get you to upgrade, they're going to give you the base model, which is this 128 version that's going to have a slower hard drive in it, basically. So it's going to be like what Samsung used in the past.
Yeah, so
And
in
what's
that
this?
case, it's not going to be running UFS 4.0. It's going to be running UFS 3.1. And I think that's not right because if you're going to have the same sister phone, you must have them the same, at least running the same processor. But so the whole thing, I'm kind of getting tired with the 128. I think it's time to move away from that as a base model. We should be having a 256 as a starting point. It's kind of has gotten old, this 128. No one should be doing that crap anymore. And most especially if it's a flagship phone.
Yeah, I
What's
think
this thing?
128's low.
Yeah, 128 is low now. What's this thing about satellite then?
The whole idea is like what we talked about earlier on in one of our episodes is that you'll be able to send, not just text, but also be able to send images and things like that. So basically, where you don't have connectivity, it will default to that satellite connectivity. And so we were hoping that Samsung would be the first one to adopt that. But at this point, I think maybe one of the Chinese phones would be the first one to adopt this.
So did Samsung
Maybe it'll be
actually
the
say?
cat that Ed has. They may be the ones to adapt it first.
Did Samsung actually say we're not going to do this? That's a really weird thing to announce what you're not going to do.
Yeah, they had an interview with the guy. I don't know. I don't remember his name. I'll put the URL in our show notes. His name is Ro, and he was giving reasons why they didn't include it, or we want it to be perfect. Hey, there's no perfection. You're either gonna do it or you don't do it.
Hopefully
I have some
they could do it
sympathy
in
with
the
that.
future.
I have some sympathy with that. They want it to work properly rather than to be the thing that got known for that didn't work properly when it was first released.
Yeah, I'm
I think
hoping that they just include it in an update at some point, whether it be One UI, what are they on now? 5.5 or something, or even if they wait until Android 14, because they have the hardware. So hopefully at some point they
Yeah,
will.
the hardware is more than capable.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I'm hoping they'll do that because it'll be a shame to have this great phone and not have that capability.
Were there any other standout features that are new this week? Because I'm getting a bit fed up with phone events and things now because they just seem to say, oh, the camera's better, the processor's faster, it might have more memory. Yeah, so what? Like, was there anything exciting?
Well, you're not alone, Fee. I think a lot of people have kind of had a burnout of all these events and whatever. It's just a little iteration of this here and there, and we focus on this or focus on, oh, now we have 200 megapixels for the ultra model. I think that's the only biggest feature that stands out for these three sisters, if you ask me. But I think that
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason worth upgrading unless you're coming from maybe a Note, like a not a Note, an S20, maybe an S21. But it just depends on your situation. If you have a phone addiction like me, of course you're going to upgrade. But I think for a regular person, no.
Why is it better than, say, an S20 then? Is it the speed, the battery?
Yeah, all of the above. These little increments add up to a lot over the course of 3 generations. If one phone's a little bit faster, it has a little more storage. It has a little better cameras. If you wait 3 years, then it's going to be a bigger jump for you.
and
Yeah, but
also,
I still haven't heard anything that exciting.
well, but also though, there's a gaming mode, so there's some things on there that some people find compelling to get this new phone, and most especially, like John says, if you have the S20, for example, we're looking at a vastly different processor. We're looking at a vastly different camera here as well. So a lot of people, those are the things that they use is they look at the camera. That's what a lot of sighted people look for, and especially the gaming industry has become such a big thing. And so for people looking for a better gaming phone, and you have an older phone, and if there's money to spare, definitely one would have to get this. And Samsung has made it to where it's kind of repurposed for their own use, to where there's a better cooling system. So there are so many things here that even if you think it's not worth the upgrade, there are some compelling things for someone having an older phone to get this phone.
John's right.
See, now, if they said the battery was going to last twice as long, something like that, I'd probably be more interested.
We're never going to
Jo-
have a battery that lasts too long because, frankly, I think that the technology we have to change drastically, because what we have, it just, I mean, look at these three sisters. The Ultra is the only one that has the 5,000 milliamp. I don't know why Samsung did that. The other ones like 4,700 or whatever. So really, the battery thing, like I've argued, though, the good thing about any phone will have to be the battery. I don't care whether it has a camera that could, zoom from my house to wherever. But if I don't have enough power to keep it running, then it's a shame. And there's no better thing than that defunct removable battery. I want the
but
European to push it.
Samsung have done this though. I mean, the S9 that I've still got, I do still use it, but it needs charging so often compared to my S20. And even, okay, it's going to now because it's old, but even when it wasn't so old, it needed charging a lot more often. And I was really pleasantly surprised when I got my S20 FE, because I was like, oh, this lasts 2 or 3 days. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, F20
So that
has a
was a big
bigger
difference.
battery
So
and a
sometimes
bigger
they do.
processor.
Yeah, so sometimes they do. And
and this
and I
is
mean the S9, I think was the S9 the first one to have wireless charging.
No,
probably
the
before
S6,
that.
the S6 was the first one to have wireless charging.
Ah, but you see, so things like that are exciting. When that came in, that was exciting. And nowadays there doesn't seem to be anything much
Yeah, there's nothing
like that.
exciting about this new phone. But the thing is, because Samsung took away your removable and replaceable battery, they can tell you now if your phone's 3 years old, this will last twice as long because you've worn
Yeah,
out that old phone.
exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
And now we move on to the app of the week. This week I'm demonstrating Express VPN. Hello everyone, and this week I'm going to demonstrate for you the app Express VPN. Before I do that though, I probably need to talk a little bit about VPNs, what they are and why you might want one. So what is a VPN? A VPN is a virtual private network, which I appreciate may not tell you much more than the initials did. What a VPN will essentially do, though, is encrypt your internet traffic to make it much more difficult for it to be spied upon by anyone who wants to look at what you're doing. So that's the main use case for a VPN, probably, if you don't want your internet traffic looked at. You might be on a public Wi-Fi network and want to do some sensitive banking transactions or pay with a credit card. And while the website you might be using to pay with a card might have SSL encryption, it almost certainly would. On a public Wi-Fi network, anyway, I would recommend that you always sit behind a virtual private network to have your traffic encrypted. If you just don't want to be looked at on a point of principle, and even if you're on your home network and you don't want your internet service provider to readily see what you're doing, you might want a virtual private network too. The other use case for them really is to get around geo-blocking restrictions. So this is where content on the internet is either only available to a certain country or not available in a certain country. A virtual private network will let you disguise your location. You can connect to servers all around the world, and when you do that, if you're in the UK and you connect to a server in the US, say, it will make it look like your internet traffic is coming from the US. Your IP address, internet protocol address, will be a US one. So when the internet content that you're looking at, maybe it's an app, maybe it's a streaming app, maybe it's something else, it'll say, where is this device? It'll look at the IP address and it will say, it's in the US, even when it actually isn't. So, if you have a Netflix account in one country and there's content you want to watch in another, you might well hop on a VPN and connect to a server in that other country. Maybe a sporting event you want to watch, the rights haven't been syndicated in the country you live in, you want to watch it, you can connect to a country where the rights have been syndicated. You might have a cable subscription or a satellite subscription. You're going on holiday, your subscription doesn't work, you might want to connect to a VPN while you're on holiday, a server in the country you live in, and access that content. That's the case in the Western world, probably, for geo-blocking. In other countries, it's different. So censorship means that different websites are blocked. So in China, many of the social media sites we use are blocked. In Russia, that's becoming increasingly the case. Certain things are unavailable in countries like the United Arab Emirates, say. So you might well, if you live in one of those jurisdictions, hop onto a VPN, change the server to a country in which that content is available, and go ahead and look. Obviously do that having researched what the consequences for you are. Clearly, if a country's blocked content, then you want to check that you are operating within the law, at least, of that country, or you need to make your own risk-based judgments about what you do. Not all VPNs are created equal, so some are better at other things than others. So if all you're bothered about is stopping your data being spied upon, then probably most VPNs will do the trick. You might want to check where the provider of your VPN is based, just in case they have to hand over data fairly readily to authorities if that's not what you want to happen. You might want a VPN based in a jurisdiction with favourable privacy laws. Also, I mentioned China back then. Not all VPNs will work in China. So if that's your specific use case, you're going to China, you want to be able to access stuff outside of China, you should have a specific look at which VPNs will work in China. And as for media streaming apps, you should also double check that the VPN will work with the app you want to try and make think that you're somewhere else. So have a look, see what the options are for the particular thing you want to do. That's not to say you need a VPN for every use case. There are some perfectly good all-round VPNs. I mentioned Express just now. That's the one I'm going to show. NordVPN is another. Golden Frog is another. Surfshark is another. CyberGhost. There are a fair few generic ones which will probably do you fairly well. Let's have a look then at the VPN.
Express, column 5.
So Express VPN, Eloquence and Talkback mangled that a little bit, but let's just open this up and won't show you all of the app, but I'll show you some of the key things.
Express, unlabeled, button, out of grid, not connected.
So it isn't connected at the minute. That unlabeled button that's in the top left is a connect button. Let's see what we have on this home screen.
Smart location, UK, East London.
So it will suggest a location if all I want to do is jump on a VPN. This is the one it suggests. If I were to double tap this on the button, it would probably connect.
Recent location, UK, Docklands. Recent location, USA, New Jersey -1. Time protected. Connect VPN to protect your traffic. Capital M, capital T, capital W, capital T, capital F, capital S, capital S. IP location. Connect to keep this location private. United Kingdom.
So there you heard it say how much time it had protected over the week, how to keep my IP address private to connect, obviously.
Security Assistant. Protect your device. 5 of 7 tasks to complete.
And this app has various other security features, so it thinks I should do some various other things that aren't VPN related at all, but it still wants me to do them.
Guard your privacy. 8 of 8 tasks to complete.
And it wants me to do some other things about privacy. Again, not VPN related, but as I say, this app offers slightly more than just a VPN.
Senior new. Password manager.
They have just introduced a password manager and they keep wanting me to use it. I have a perfectly adequate password manager. I don't need to use Express VPNs. And now we're on the tabs at the bottom.
Selected. VPN. Tab 1 of 4. And list 4 items. Keys. Tab 2 of 4.
That was the passwords.
Help. Tab 3 of 4. Options. Tab 4 of 4.
So I'm going to show you a little bit more on this on the VPN screen. I called it a home screen. And then I'll have a look at the options and some of the settings and talk about some of those.
Unlabeled. Button. Out of list. Not connected. Smart location. UK. East London.
So I'm going to have a look at how we change location. So it says smart location East London. Let's see what we can do about this. I'm going to double tap it.
Express. Navigate up. Button. VPN locations. Search. Button. Selected. Recommended. Tab 1 of 2. All locations. Tab 2 of 2.
So it's going to have some featured ones in the recommended. Where do people to connect to most often? Let's see what we've got in here.
Smart location 1 of 23. And list 23 items. UK. East London 2 of 23. Recent locations 3 of 23. UK. Docklands 4 of 23. USA. New Jersey -1 5 of 23. Recommended locations 6 of 23. United Kingdom 7 of 23. Unlabeled. United States 8 of 23. Unlabeled. Germany 9 of 23.
And I'm just going through the different locations. You hear United States, Germany.
Unlabeled. Netherlands 10 of 23.
And you get the idea. If I were to select all instead of recommended, you would have other jurisdictions. You could connect from Africa, from the Middle East, from elsewhere in Europe if you want to. And as I say, the reason you might want to do that is if you want to be able to access content only available in a certain location where that access is done by your IP address. So I'm going to back out of VPN locations.
Navigate up. Button. Out of list. Express. Smart location. UK. East London. Not connected. Unlabeled. Button.
I will just tap that unlabeled button for you in the top left to show you that it does actually connect to something.
Connected. Unlabeled. Button. Connected. Current location. UK. East London.
And so we are now connected. Now what I'm going to do is show you some of the settings in the VPN, or in Express VPN rather, and they are in the Options tab in the bottom right.
Options. Tab 4 of 4. And options. Selected. Options. Out of list. Settings.
And it's settings we want to go into, and let's have a look at this.
Express. Unlabeled. Button. Settings. VPN settings. Auto connect. Disabled.
So Auto Connect. You might, depending on your use case, want your VPN to connect at various different times. Do you always want it to connect when you turn your device on? Do you only want it to connect when you join a non-trusted network? When you do connect to a VPN, you do have some compromises. So speed might be one of them. You may find it fractionally slower than your regular internet connection, which is why it's important to find the right VPN for what you want. If you want to watch video, then obviously you're going to want to watch to sign up for a VPN with reasonable speeds. So let's go and have a look and see what I have in Auto Connect.
Express. Navigate up button. Auto connect. Help button. Automatically connect to last VPN location. When Android starts up. Off switch. When joining networks not listed as trusted. Off switch.
So those are my two options. I can have it all the time or when I join a non-trusted network.
Navigate up button. Express. Auto connect disabled. Network protection, internet access and local network settings.
So network protection, let's go and have a look at this, see what we've got in here.
Express. Navigate up button. Network protection, internet access. Block internet when unable to connect or reconnect to VPN. On switch. Always block all non-VPN internet traffic. More secure, but disables key VPN features such as split tunneling. Tap to learn more.
So split tunneling is a setting we'll see later on. So this is saying, do you want any app to have to use the VPN to connect to the internet, or will you allow some internet traffic through?
Allow access to devices on local network. Stay connected to local devices such as Chromecasts, printers, and file servers when the VPN is connected. If block connections without VPN is enabled in Android settings.
And that's about what happens to your things such as casting if this setting is changed.
Navigate up button. Express. Network protection, internet access and local net split tunneling. All apps use the VPN.
Split tunneling. So this is the thing you just heard about. And what happens here is you might not want all apps to use your VPN. Maybe an app doesn't work very well if it's connected to VPN. Maybe the traffic needs to be in the clear. Maybe you find that actually your VPN is a little bit slow for some of the apps you want. If you're mainly focused on data privacy, maybe it's okay for some apps to be able to access the internet without the VPN. You know, if you're only worried about transactions or emails, maybe you don't care about Netflix not using the VPN, so you might well enable split tunneling. As it said in that previous setting though, or in the previous settings group, depending on how the setting about blocking internet traffic works, then split tunneling may or may not function.
VPN protocol, automatic, recommended.
There are different protocols for VPNs. I wouldn't worry too much about this, especially if you're using the VPN's own app. You should just let it do what it wants.
Other settings. App and website shortcuts, disabled. Protection summary, enabled. Help improve Express, enabled. App screenshots, enabled.
And that's it. Express VPN is a paid one, as are the other ones I listed earlier. There are free ones, but you may find they're a little slower. You know, you may find they don't work quite as well. You may not be able to have as many devices connected to the VPN at the same time if you use a free one. So do your research before you sign up for a VPN. I said make sure it does what you want. Also, check if a free one is any good. There are a lot of good paid options out there, though. So you certainly won't be short if you do go for a VPN. They are also very often on sale. So if you've looked at the reviews, found one you quite like, it is worth doing a Google to see if they have a sale on. Quite often some of the big computer magazines have coupons where you might either get a discount or a few months free. I got Express VPN, I think, 15 months for the price of 12. So well worth having a look at that too. So that's a brief taster of VPNs and a brief taster of Express VPN. So does anyone else use VPNs, or is it just me?
Not recently.
No.
I used one when I was studying at a college about 15 years ago. You had to log in via their web portal, and you were then in their VPN. But I've never used one on a phone. I know of people who use them, people who are abroad and they want to watch British TV and things like that.
Yeah, I love VPNs.
Ed, you cattle thief. What are you stealing with that VPN?
So the next step I'm going to demonstrate, which will come as a surprise because it's US exclusive, is Sirius XM. I'm paying for it. I'm paying. No, I'm paying for it. I don't mind paying, but what I object to is them saying I'm in the UK, so I can't listen to it. So I hop on my VPN, listen to Sirius XM, and all is well. And I'll show you
There
that
you go.
in my next
Is
demo.
that a sport is it a sports thing?
No, it's a curated radio service. So it's not like TuneIn where they broadcast all the radio stations that exist, and if they don't, you add a custom URL to make it exist. They
Except for
have.
the BBC, they don't do that anymore. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
Well, you could still probably add it to TuneIn as a custom
No,
URL, or you
no.
could find. Well, you can find another radio app. You can do. SiriusXM curates a lot of their own channels. Not all of them. They syndicate some of them, but they do have all the sport. Yeah, they've got. They have the Talksport International Premier League coverage, which is kind of interesting. It's different to Talksport domestic. They have all the American sports. Obviously, they have channels dedicated to bands. So there's a Beatles channel on SiriusXM that will only ever play Beatles stuff. Howard Stern does stuff for them. So if you want like a directory of radio stations that it probably isn't for you, but if you want your content curated a little bit, then maybe it is. But you do need a US IP address, so the VPN works very well for that.
So have you used it for some UK things when you've been away in Canada then, for example?
Yeah, I did that. And that's a good point, because I should say something else. I used it for TalkSport. That worked quite well. The BBC does not determine your location via IP address. So the VPN is going to be entirely useless, because that's all it changes. What the BBC Sounds app does, and its sports rights are restricted, is it determines your location by location services on your phone. And you might think, aha, I can outsmart this by turning location services off, but then all it will do is go, well, I don't know where you are, I'm not going to play. Happily,
you are not in the UK. I'm not going to give it to you because
Yeah.
I don't see you in the UK.
Well, if it does,
why
yeah,
are
but
you
if it
trying to
doesn't
steal?
know, yeah, but if it doesn't know where you are at
It
all
assumes
because
you're
you've
not in
turned
the
off
UK.
location,
Then
it
it
won't
means
work.
you're not in the UK because
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the ITV app that does something
Yeah,
like that.
but happily, you are all Android listeners, so there's a way around this, isn't there, Warren?
Yep,
there?
and we've talked about it, that mock location thing we talked about
Mock
earlier.
location.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mock location is your friend. iOS users, you are SOL, I'm afraid. You can't do it without jailbreaking your phones and going to your friends at Cydia. But on Android, you absolutely can. You can download an app, go into developer options, and set your location literally to anywhere else. And any app that determines your location by location services will be spoofed. And next we have Warren's tip of the week. And this week it's all about accessing safe mode.
Hi. For episode 113 tip of the week, this is demonstrating safe mode. For today's demonstration, I am utilizing my Pixel 7 Pro running Android 13 QPR2 Beta 2.3. In the way of the TTS engine, I am again utilizing the Google Speech services. The whole idea of doing this demonstration of the safe mode actually came to me because of an email that we got. And basically someone had some funny thing going on with their phone, and thus, in a way to track down what the problem might be, I think we need to show how to run your phone in safe mode. So let's think of this like running your Windows computer in a safe mode. I do want to mention here in passing that running the safe mode does not stop your screen reader from reading. In other words, if you're using Talkback, I cannot say categorically as to whether or not this will stop your confused screen reader. That's the G-Show, or like Austin would like to call it, Joshua. I think it will be disabled because what safe mode does is basically stop every third party from running. In other words, disable that, and they will be restored once you restart your phone again. That's what I am demonstrating today. So let's go ahead and show you how you go about running your phone in a safe mode. As I indicated, I'm using my Pixel 7 Pro, so I'm going to be holding down both the power and up volume keys to bring up the power menu.
Phone options. Emergency.
We heard phone options, and the first thing we heard is emergency. Now below that emergency is the power off button. That's the button we need to interact with. I'll put my finger down and touch that particular button that says power off button.
Power off.
Here is my power off, but we're not powering off. Instead, what we're doing is to long press, in other words, double tapping and holding the power off button. So we tap twice, but on the second tap, you hold that finger in place and that pops up a menu. That's the long pressing. I will now long press, that is, double tap and hold that power off button.
Reboot to safe mode. Do you want to reboot into safe mode? This will disable all third-party applications you have installed. They will be restored when you reboot again.
That's the dialog we got when we long press that power off button. And then to the right of that, about a couple inches down, are the cancel and OK button. Now, I do want to mention here in passing that I'm using something called Reflector 4 in recording my audio from my phone. And so if I just tap on OK, it will disconnect from Reflector 4 and will force shut the app, and I'll be losing this recording. So before I tap on OK, I'm going to disconnect or pause this recording or stop this recording and then resume from here. Now, here I am recording using my Windows recorder, and you're going to be hearing my phone not close up as it was earlier.
Do you want to reboot into safe mode? This will disable all third-party applications you have installed. They will be restored when you reboot again.
Okay, and like I said, moving down, we got a couple buttons, one to the left, the cancel, and the OK to the right.
Cancel button.
There's that cancel.
OK button.
And now I'm going to tap on OK.
Restarting. Progress bar.
We heard restarting progress bar in, and so it just stopped talking from there. I'm going to let it go ahead and come back up so that I will log on to my phone, and then we'll go back and continue. So meanwhile, I'm waiting for the phone to come back. I heard the vibration.
Talkback on.
And it's
Device
back
locked.
on.
Unlock for all features and data. System UI. Android beta program. This device is enrolled in the Android beta program. The program allows Android developers and enthusiasts to try out pre-release versions.
Well, you understand all of that, so I'm going to tap on OK.
OK. Device locked. Locks.
And now I'm going to input my PIN, so I'm going to pause it and then input my PIN and then resume from here.
Enter. Device locked. Device unlocked. PIN area. Home.
I just put in my PIN and my device is now unlocked. Next, though, what I'm going to do is to jump back to the Reflector 4 and continue this recording. I am now back using my Reflector 4 app. I do want to mention here in passing, though, that when you enable this save mode, your phone gets placed in the airplane mode. I had to turn that off. Now, all my apps, all my third-party apps have been disabled. I'll show you what I mean. I'll move to my second page where I have apps rather than folders, and you'll hear that the apps are disabled.
Home screen 2 of 4.
And I'll put my finger down and move through some of the apps, and you'll hear that they are disabled.
Disabled NIV Bible Study. Disabled Home. Disabled Boost. Disabled Spark. Disabled Audio MP3 Editor. Disabled Sound Recorder Plus. Disabled Headphones. Disabled AlphaCast X. Disabled What 3 words?
As you can hear, my apps have been disabled, even including the Google Home app. because I installed the Google Home app and it's not a system app. And now that you have third-party apps disabled, you can see if you're still experiencing the problem that led you to running the phone in a safe mode. So for example, if there are recent apps that you've installed, now you can try to narrow down which one it is. You can uninstall some of the recent apps that you think was causing the problem, or maybe install them one at a time and then reboot the phone back in normal mode and then see if the problem has gone away. But that's how you do that running of your phone in a safe mode. And that concludes the tip of the week. Thanks for listening.
And next we have John Dyer's highlights from Talkback.
Welcome back to our continuing series on Talkback highlights. Today's episode will be installment number 53, and we will be covering the new feature in Talkback 13.1 called split tap typing. And just want to preface this by saying you will need Android 13 to take advantage of this feature. So I'm just going to describe exactly what it is before I demonstrate it. What it is the ability to type on the on-screen keyboard. In this case, I'm using Gboard. And rather than having to double tap a key or lift a key to input it, what you'll do is you'll move one finger around the keyboard to highlight the key you want to input, and the other finger, or a second finger I should say, you will tap on the screen to input the key. So I'm just going to demonstrate it here, and I'm holding the phone in my right hand. I'm going to be moving my right thumb around the keyboard, and with my left index finger, I'm going to be tapping the screen to input each letter. So I'm in an edit box right now in the Messages app, and I'm just going to type, "This is a test."
Capital H, capital F, capital T, capital T, H, H, I, in I, F, D, delta, S, space, this, J, Julie, I, in I, T, F, D, delta, S, V, Victor, space, is, C, A, Alpha, A, C, Charlie, space, A, G, Golf, T, F, E, Echo, E, D, delta, S, test, R, 5, T, Tango, T, D, C, symbol keyboard, back,
symbols.
symbol keyboard, letter, code, showing symbol keyboard, exclamation, test,
Put an exclamation. So let's see what we have here.
editing, this is a test, edit box,
So as you can see, I was able to type that using split tap typing. Now, another thing that's kind of cool about this is you can delete characters fast. So let's say I want to delete the exclamation mark and the word test. So I know I'm going to delete 5 characters. I can simply put one finger on the delete key and hit 5 times with the other finger. So I could do like this.
delete, T deleted,
So that quickly I deleted the word test. So I'm going to go back to the letter keyboard.
letter keyboard, shift, showing
I'm just
English
gonna-
US QWERTY,
Show you another way you could possibly do this, because that was using my right thumb, and some people can't reach the whole keyboard with their thumb. So what they'll do is hold their phone in their right hand and use their left hand to do the typing. So in that case, you would, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to type the word test again. I'm going to be moving my left index finger around the keyboard, and I'm just going to tap with my left middle finger when I get to the key I want.
T, 6, 7, U, uniform, Y, T, Tango, T, R, Romeo, E, D, Delta, R, Romeo,
You can tell
E,
I'm not
Echo, E,
used to typing like
S,
this,
Sierra, D, O, T, Tango, T.
but just wanted to show you. Let's see.
Editing, this is a test, edit box.
So yeah, I was able to do it that way. You might find that easier. Obviously, you don't have to use any specific 2 fingers. You can use whatever is the easiest for you. And I also want to show you a setting that will need to be set a specific way in order for this to work. Now, if you haven't ever tinkered with your Talkback settings, then you can just ignore this part because the default setting will work for you. But I'm going to bring up the Talkback menu. You can either tap with 3 fingers or swipe down and to the right.
Talkback menu. Talkback settings.
I'm going to go into Talkback
This is a
settings.
test. Keyboard hidden. Talkback settings. Navigate up, button.
I'll scroll to the bottom. Near the bottom,
Tutorial and help. Advanced settings.
you're going to go to Advanced Settings,
Audio, heading.
and then near the bottom again.
Single tap to activate. Privacy policy. Terms of service. Developer settings.
You're going to look for Developer Settings.
Version code. Version 13.1.0.5. Echo recognized speech. Explore by touch. On. Enable performance statistics. Handle gestures in Talkback. On. Switch.
You're going to look for Handle Gestures in Talkback. This switch has to be turned on in order for split tap typing to work. This is turned on by default, so if you haven't messed with it, don't worry about going into these settings. I had it turned off because it makes me be able to use the regular gestures faster. But if you've never gone in here, then don't worry about it. But if split tap typing is not working for you and you're using Android 13, this is probably the reason. Go in here, make sure this switch is turned on. So that concludes this installment of Talkback Highlights. Thank you for listening.
And we conclude this week with an Android Journey segment, and it's from Will, who you've already heard, Will Murgatroyd. He sent us his segment earlier. I'm going to play that now, and then we'll talk to Will about that.
Hi guys, it's Will Murgatroyd here from Luton, UK. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on your podcast. I've loved it from day one, even when I wasn't using Android. I think you're excellent hosts. Your demonstrations are fantastic, and really, it's just what we need. There's not enough of your content on the internet, so I respect you for that. Okay, so I've only been using Android properly and I'm sort of settled down with it for not even a week yet. But to be honest, I've wanted to share my Android journey with you guys for the last few days because I know I've grown so accustomed to Android now, and I'm not going to go back to iOS at all. So my Android journey sort of began in 2016. It was sort of mid to late 2016, and I don't know why this was, whether it was just out of curiosity or what it was, but I'd been using iPhones for about 5 years. I got my first iPhone in 2012. It was the iPhone 3GS, but prior to that, I'd been using my mum's 3GS, and I'd grown accustomed to the iPhone. I was familiar with VoiceOver, and I was quite content. However, in sort of September, October of 2016, I asked my living skills teacher in secondary/high school whether I could have a little go on her Android phone. And she said yes, it was a Samsung, but I'm not too sure which one it was. And it must have gone well, because she then said, well, why don't you ask some students, because there were some Android using students in the school. Why don't you ask some students if you can have a little play with theirs and try and familiarize yourself with Talkback and stuff, which of course wasn't as responsive, wasn't as great as it is now. I'm very impressed with how Google have worked hard to improve Talkback over the last couple of years, particularly with the updates from Android 11 with the multi-finger gestures, which I think, and it has been mentioned before on the podcast, but I agree, should have been added years and years ago. But I'm glad they're there now. Anyway, I didn't ask any students if I could have a little go on their phones. I was very impulsive and still am to this day. And I actually, in the October half term, I asked or persuaded my mum to take me to the O2 shop. O2, for those who aren't aware, is a network, mobile network over here in the UK. In our local town, she took me to the O2 shop, and I don't even think I even had to go on the phones in there. It was just a case of, okay, I want to switch from iOS to Android. Which one is the best for me? Or the best phone out there at the moment, I should say. And we ended up buying the Sony Ericsson Xperia XA Ultra, which, to be honest, was a struggle. I hadn't had, as I say, I'd only had like a 2-minute play around on my teacher's phone. There was no, I hadn't done what I have done now with my current phone, the Pixel 6. I hadn't sat there and, customized it and, made sure it was how I wanted it, Talkback wise. So the phone was quite a struggle for me. I had it for about 3 days. Even doing something as simple as answering a call was impossible. Texting on it was impossible. I was using the single tap keyboard at the time, and I wasn't used to it. I didn't know you could change in the Talkback settings the typing preference as I have done now, because I'd still struggle a little bit with the single tap keyboard. And so I ran back to the phone shop with Mum 3 days later, and we bought the iPhone 3, not 3GS, we bought the iPhone 5S. I'm not that old school. We bought the iPhone 5S for me, I believe it was. And then, again, about a year later, I was talking with a Android user friend of mine, and he was trying to sort of convert me. He was sort of saying, well, there's nothing really that iPhone can do, which he had a Samsung S7 Edge at the time. There's nothing really that iPhone can do, which Samsung can't, coincidentally, actually, fast forwarding a few months to February 2018, I had been badgering my mum for an Android phone. And bear in mind, I'd only got my iPhone 6S, I think it was. It was about 4 months earlier. I am terrible with phones. I only got that about 4 months earlier. And of course, Mum was like, no, you're not going to have a new phone already. Coincidentally, and Mum to this day still believes it was on purpose, but I'm telling you it wasn't, my phone went missing in the cinema. 1 minute it was in my pocket, next minute we leave the film, and it wasn't. So we went to the phone shop the next day, and of course I chose an Android phone. I got the Samsung Galaxy A5 2017 edition. And it was actually surprising. I was using obviously Samsung's voice assistant screen reader at the time. Samsung and Google hadn't collaborated to create Samsung's Talkback, which I understand has caused a few problems with me as well. But I'll come on to that. And it was quite straightforward. It was quite easy to adapt to. And I had that thing actually I had it for a good few months actually before it broke. It would fail to charge, telling me that moisture had been detected in the charging socket. So I then ran back again to the iPhone, and I guess to cut a long story short, over the years I've gone Android iPhone, Android iPhone, Android iPhone, and I've never really quite. So I've bought phones from Amazon without much thought. I bought the, Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, didn't get on with that. I bought the Samsung Galaxy A22, didn't get on with that. The Samsung Galaxy A13, didn't get on with that. So I guess, for the most part, I was using the iPhone. And recently, I really, really got into the Blind Android Users podcast. And also, bearing in mind my iPhone 13 mini, it was, the battery on it was pretty awful. And I was just, reaching the end of my tether, and I was like, do you know what? I need a new phone. And the Pixels had, you guys and Live Accessible have been singing the praises of the Pixel phones for ages. And I thought, do you know what? Because I was going to get myself a Samsung phone, the Samsung M13, I think I had my eyes on. But I got myself the Pixel 6, and when I first, and do you know what? When I first turned it on last Tuesday, which will probably be a few weeks if you decide to put my Android journey on your podcast, it'll be a few weeks ago. But when I first turned it on, I was so impressed with how responsive Talkback was. I was like, wow, oh yes. There were, I set it up and started to use it, and there were a few problems, and for a time I went back, for like 24 hours, I went back to my iPhone 13 mini. And then I thought, a couple of days later, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to give it one more try. I've paid all this money for it. I'm going to give it one more try. And I'm happy that I did. I have now sold my iPhone 13 mini. I am very impressed with how responsive Talkback is. I'm loving the multi-finger gestures. I'm loving the fact that Android is so... I know everyone says it, of course, but I'm loving the fact that Android is so customizable. I've customized my own ringtones and notification sounds for different people. And that's what I love about Pixel, is that you have there's an easy way to do that. Whereas on Apple, of course, you have to use GarageBand, and from experience, I know it can be done, but from experience, it's not the most accessible for me, at least. And yeah, I just love Android. I don't think I'm gonna get rid of this phone for many years. And yeah, and you've got to be fair to both platforms, guys. I think there are some advantages to iOS, and there are some advantages to Android. But for me, I now prefer Android. So I thank you very much for listening to my Android journey, and I will continue listening to your great podcast. And hopefully, I would love to come on live if I can. That's another dream of mine. So accept or reject, but I wish you all the best in the future.
Thanks very much for that, Will. Warren, I know this is very much your favourite segment, isn't it? So I'm going to hand over to you to take it away with Will.
It is my most favorite part of this episode. And Will, I don't know where you found us, but you've been listening to us. And thank you so much for
You
actually
are
coming.
welcome.
Coming to talk about your Android journey story. I love these stories because you know what? It tells people that whatever struggles that they had, they were not alone. There's someone out there that had the same experience or something similar. And so the Android journey story has become my most favorite segment of the podcast. And so if you are out there and you haven't sent in your Android journey story yet, that is, those of you listening to us, please send us those stories, or even come on live and interact with us. And you are playing host when you come on and be part of the live conversation. We have Will here, Mr. Murgatroyd, and sounds like Android, rhymes with Android, beautiful name. So Will, we really appreciate you coming on here, young man. You're doing a great job back there. And when you go out on that run, carry with you the blind users podcast with you. So thanks for this great contribution in the way of your Android journey story. Now tell me something, Will. There's you started with a Samsung device. The one that I found laughable is you lost it in the theater. What was going on here?
Well, that was actually my iPhone 6S, which I 6S, it was 6S, and it was very, like, as I say, to this day, my mum still believes, and I can tell you guys now, it wasn't, but my mum still believes that I actually lost it intentionally, because obviously, the day before I've been saying, "Oh, I want an Android," like a petulant child. I was 17 or 18, but like a petulant child, I was like, "I want an Android phone. I want an Android phone." And mum was like, "Yeah, but Will, because at the time that obviously it wasn't as advanced as it is now and things," and she was like, "Are you going to be able to get everything on there that you've got on your iPhone?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I just want an Android." And obviously the next day, my 6S went missing, and we don't know where it went. And that's when I moved to the Samsung A5 2017. That wasn't. Yes, that was the first Samsung I got, actually. The first Android I got was obviously the Sony Xperia XA Ultra. And again, that was because of having no prior knowledge of Android. It was, as I said, it was just like, what's the best phone on the market? Yeah, I'll get that.
Yeah, because I was kind of wondering, really what really happened to that, what I call the Fruitvale phone, the iPhone. Was it a deliberate thing? It fell out of the pocket. You didn't realize it fell out. You were having so much fun at the movies or whatever the case was, But I
I
found it
literally
very
no
laughable.
idea.
That was brilliant, my man. At least you got your Android, right?
I did, and it was a very it was very easily. I don't want to repeat much of what I've already said, but it was easy to adapt to. I didn't know how I'd get on with it, because obviously my Sony I didn't get on with at all, and that's because I'd had literally no prior experience. Texting, answering, like I said, even answering calls was impossible for me. I'd scroll across the screen. All I hear is response options. It's like, can I just answer this call, please?
And Android in the early days was horrible, though. It was a lot harder to do most things. And something I really like about the Samsungs, Will, that I know you don't like the Samsungs, but I like that I could switch on a thing, and when someone phones me, I press the up volume button and I've answered the call. I don't think any other phone has that,
I've not seen it on the Pixel. Double tapping with two
No,
fingers
it's not.
can
Yeah, you
work.
can do that. Yeah, that works as well. But sometimes when it's having a moment, the up volume thing, it just always works, and that's one of my favorite Samsung things.
Yeah. Warren, are you
And
going to let Fees comment Android was horrible early on, Stan, or are you going to
No, I was,
defend?
I was, I
was.
was coming up with a rebuttal, and here's my rebuttal. The problem is that it wasn't terrible. It wasn't horrible.
It
People just
was.
didn't know it wasn't, because we're
It
talking
was
about.
because Talkback was
Hang on.
so slow,
No,
and it
Fee,
wasn't
hang on.
installed. It wasn't installed by default, and it was
No, it
really
was.
annoying. You had
It
to.
was installed by default. What phone were you getting?
Well, they were probably cheaper ones, but
Well, maybe
like
you,
there was
you, you
no.
cattle thief. You are getting something from China. That's why.
It was a Samsung, and then I had an
Oh
HTC.
no! All the Samsung phones came with Talkback. They were
No, they
accessible
didn't.
out of the
Not the
box.
cheap ones. Not the
Well,
cheap
so
ones.
that's what I'm saying. You got a
You
Chinese
had to
knockoff.
no. You had to turn it on.
Yeah, but
10 years ago,
that doesn't mean
12
that it
years ago.
didn't come with it. Fee. There's
Yeah, but
having
it wasn't.
someone turn it
I
on
couldn't.
and not
Yeah,
coming with it are two different things.
yeah, but that's horror. I didn't say it didn't come with it. I said you
Oh, you
couldn't
said that.
set it up yourself.
No,
You couldn't
you
set it up
earlier said
yourself.
it did not. So that's why I was saying maybe you got a
It
Chinese
didn't come with
knockoff.
it on, as in turned on.
Well, none of them did that.
You couldn't set it up yourself.
Yes, you
Whereas
can.
with the iPhone,
No,
you can now.
no, you can't.
Now
Here's
you
the
can.
problem. No, yes, you could. Fee. It started with ice cream sandwich. Okay, you can draw a line.
Yeah, I'm talking pre. I'm talking gingerbread. I'm talking whatever the one before gingerbread was. That's when it was horrible.
But to say that but then you need to be specific. But to say that
I said
Android
early
or
on,
Coca
very early on.
was bad. I mean,
It
that's a
was.
misnomer. No, it wasn't. And
Back in the day, it was, and they had
here's what I'm
they had
trying to
those
say.
horrible angle gestures.
Let me clarify something. The problem we had was that if I start my phone out of the box and I missed that step and it passed that setup screen, then I'm toast because I'm not able to turn on accessibility on my own. And many people didn't know that. And so, you um, get to pass that and then you realize that you need someone else to help you turn it on. However, we had the first instance of being able to turn on our accessibility on our own, with that ice cream, which I failed when I tried to draw the rectangle. I didn't do it right, so it didn't work for
No,
me.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Now with Jelly Bean, however, in 2012, I was able to start, my accessibility on my own. And like I said, until Oreo, um, we now could, even if someone had already gone past that screen, you could enable accessibility by holding down those two volumes. And so we have come a
Yeah.
long way, but
Now
those
we have, and
mechanisms were in there.
now it's really nice. But I'm talking when I first used it, it was probably what was the one before gingerbread?
That was the Eclair.
Eclair. Yeah, I think I
No,
had
no, no, no.
gingerbread.
Sorry, no. It was Froyo. Froyo
No,
was horrible.
I had gingerbread, and you couldn't. There was no way back then to set up accessibility by yourself. It just wasn't possible at all.
Oh, that
And
gingerbread was the was one of those that was hard. But so,
so that's what I'm saying. Back
but what I
then,
was trying to
Android
say
was
though, we're talking
horrible
about
then, and then it improved after that. But that's why I think that's a problem we still have, though, that because 12 or 13 years ago it was horrible, some people tried it then, and they've never gone back and tried it again and realized that try this as a new experience now. Forget what it was like then. And that's something
yeah.
I said in my interview that I did this week. I said to people, don't, if you're trying Android now, try it like you're starting again, because Android was very difficult. And I also found when did they change the gestures? Because those angle
No, hang on.
gestures, those
Before
I think
you
corners
that
move,
they
was
were
hang
Android
hard.
on,
11.
hang on. Before
Yeah,
you move
they
to
were
that
hard.
gesture, we were talking about answering calls because
Yeah,
uh, and what happened was that the method of answering calls, evolved over the period.
yeah.
Used to be that when you had a call, you swipe from left to right with two fingers near the bottom of the screen, and that will answer your call. And if you swipe from right to left, that declined the call. And so, if
Didn't always.
Mr. Murgatroyd didn't know that, there was no way he was going to be able to answer the call. And later on, I think it was with, I don't remember what version of Android that brought the swiping up with two fingers to answer the call. So either you could tap on the answer call, in previous versions, or you swipe with those two fingers at the bottom from left to right to answer the call. And then even now, you can still tap on the answer the call if you don't want to use the swipe up with two fingers to answer, or double tap to answer the call. I don't use the double tap because I find for me easier to just swipe up with two fingers than giving my phone a beating just because I want to answer a call.
The other thing as well, and Android didn't, or Talkback didn't particularly help itself in this regard, but there were 6 angled gestures.
Oh,
You, you only ever needed 2 of them. And then you only
yeah.
ever needed one of them by the end. Like they included angled gestures for things that already had native system gestures assigned to them. Like, so you never needed to perform an angled gesture to go home. You never needed to perform an angled gesture to go back. You never needed to perform an angled gesture
I'm
to bring
gonna
up
I'm gonna
reasons.
disagree with you on this one because I know people hate the angle gestures, but I like them a lot because now I'm not hating on multi-finger gestures. I love them as well, and I use both. But for somebody who uses a phone most of the time with one hand, like I just hold it in my right hand and I use my thumb for all the actions. Like you can't go home with only one hand. You have to use two fingers and swipe up from the bottom with your opposite hand. So if you're doing something else, like if you're holding something, carrying something, using your cane, and you want to do something on your phone real quick, angle gestures actually let you do a lot more with one hand. So that's the
Yeah.
benefit, I
Well,
think. Obviously,
Fair
the
enough.
reason it was put in Android is because back in the old days, some Android phones didn't even support multi-touch on their screens. So they just
No.
made TalkBack only work with one finger gestures.
yeah, there'll be use cases like John's where someone's using their phone one-handed. Most people aren't though, and they made TalkBack more intimidating than it needed to be by including and because it didn't say when you're in the TalkBack tutorial, go home, swipe up with 2 fingers or press the home button in the
On
bottom,
the bottom,
in the middle of
middle.
it. Like
Yeah.
that's what it should have said. It shouldn't have said go home, swipe up and left. Because there were better ways for the vast majority, for everyone who isn't John, there were better ways to go home.
So here's the problem, and it's not a problem, but what has happened, and I think that the problem, yeah, let's call it a problem, is the fact that a lot of people didn't or don't know that, outside of the gestures, screen reader based gestures for talkback to do certain actions and all of that is the fact that you can still use those native gestures. And so it gave it a bad rap in the sense that people always look at talkback and say, hey, those angle gestures, because that's what you hear, or the angular gestures are hard to do. Oh, you do this angle, and I can't handle those angle gestures. But so, see, we have both. If you don't like the native gestures, you feel more comfortable, like the use case scenario that John just alluded to. If I am holding that phone in one hand, I can't go home by swiping up with 2 fingers from the bottom to go home. I'll have to use that screen reader based gesture to be able to go home or do those actions. So I think that it's actually a blessing that we have both of those, as to the other side, the other aisle, that you can't do native gestures. Everything is wrapped around the screen reader based gestures, and I will hate that with a passion.
So, Will, did you? It sounds like from what you've said that you went back to an iPhone after a while from your Samsung.
Over the years,
And
Sophie, I've
why
gone
was that?
Android,
What was
iPhone,
it?
Android, iPhone.
What was it about Android that made you go back to iPhone, or was it just that there were features in the iPhone you wanted?
I think
Again.
at the time, like I say, over the years, I've gone from one to the other. And I think at the time, I just wasn't giving it enough time, or, I'm not a patient person. So I wasn't giving it enough time. And I was like, do you know what? Sod this. I'm going to go back to the iPhone. It's a lot easier.
So it's familiarity then, basically.
It is. But
That makes sense.
Having listened to you guys over the last, I've listened to you guys for 6-7 months, I'd say. I think in the end, when I bought this Pixel 6 that I've got now, even when even after I pressed the order button, I was thinking, oh, should I have done that? Should I have done that? Then I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to try it. And again, I'm so glad that I did. And I think it's been said a lot before, but I would really, really encourage, as you've said, Fee, I'd encourage people to at least try Android again, and again, persevere. Don't give up on the first stumbling block, because think about it, like, when you started with Windows, were there challenges? Yes. With iOS, were there challenges? Yes. So you're gonna get challenges. Whatever you do, it's just finding ways to overcome them. Like, what I mentioned earlier on about it was, well, obviously off the recording, about the fact that my assistant voice typing inserts punctuation at very random points. I'm not gonna give up my Pixel because of that, even though I want to smash it sometimes when it does it. I'm not going to give it up because of it. I'm just going to work with it, and if there's a way I can turn it off, I'm going to explore the settings and see if I can turn the damn thing off.
I'll let you into a secret. The iPhone started doing that recently as well.
I know, but you can easily turn that off.
Yeah.
Well, there was something very funny you said, or I thought it was funny, but this is part of my proclivity to tease, which you may have noticed I have.
Oh yes,
So what you've said a couple of times, I think you said it in the recording, and you certainly said it since, is that you anticipate owning this phone for years to come. Now, I don't doubt you'll stick with Android, but what is it about your phone history? Just think about all the phones you've ever owned that makes you think you're going to own the phone for a year, never mind years. Like, I mean, come on.
Do you know what? I've
Nothing
just
in
been
your track record.
I've just been awful with money, but the one thing I love about the Pixel is, and I had a Pixel. Well, I actually had a Pixel. Well, I missed this one out from the journey because it's not of, it's of very little importance. But when my iPhone was going in for repairs, I actually had a Pixel 2 XL, and I think Ed, actually, you might remember we spoke very briefly on Facebook about it.
We did, yeah. I was talking to these guys about that. Yeah,
yeah. But I think, one thing I love about, and it's a very, very small thing, but one thing I love about the Pixel is just how customizable it is in terms, in terms of, I know it's very, very small, but in terms of ringtones and notification tones, I've never found this option on Samsung or anything else I've used, where you go and select a notification or a ringtone, and you can actually, download your own, correct me if I'm wrong, especially for a Samsung user.
You're wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
You can actually do the same thing, can you, on Samsung?
Yeah, you can make your own ringtones. You just have to put them in the ringtones folder on your phone, and yeah.
Well, that's the thing about Android in general, whether it's from Pixel or from Samsung. What drives people to it or keeps people in place is that customization you just mentioned, Well. And yes, you could do this with not any Samsung, any Android phone. And so it's a beautiful thing on Android. You can customize it as you want. Yeah, lately though, some of the customization that we like, some of them are kind of getting taken away. Most especially, like say, hey, I want to be able to access this folder or whatever. Tighter security has led to some inability to access some things that one would like to access with some other, file managers. So I know it is one of those things that it kind of hates.
But you can usually get another file manager to get around it on Android, though, can't you?
No, you can't.
Usually. Oh, you can't. They've stopped that
I'm
now.
talking about, let's say you're on Android 13, for example. You're not going to be able to access some folders. Let's say you want to go into the Android directory and access like the maybe the Android data folder or the OBB folder. You're not going to get access to it.
Really?
Yeah, the scope storage thing. It's worth seeing. I haven't tried it on my Sony since it ran. Got upgraded to Android 13. You certainly could, when scope storage is introduced, you could get around it with a third-party file manager. I don't know if Android 13 has broken that. I never tried it on my.
Yeah, you try that and let me know.
Oh well. Previously there were third-party file managers that would get around the scope storage problem.
Yeah, if you are on Android 12, yes, you could.
Yeah, but
maybe
not
something as
but
common
not
as
13.
CX File Explorer, you could, but try that on Android 13 and let's talk.
What about from your computer? Can you do it from there? If you plug the phone in?
Of course. Yes, you can. Of course. It's just that using another app to access certain portions that you're not going to be allowed, because what has happened is that, and chuck it up to the bad guys, because they will use their apps to access things that they're not supposed to, and either be serving you ads or, try to steal your stuff. So what Google did was to kind of say, hey, keep your fingers only to yourself. You can go out poking those fingers in another person's app and things like that. And that's what happened.
Annoyingly, it also started treating its users like children, not just its app developers. So if I want fingers poked, I should be able to invite the fingers to poke. And Google don't seem to think I ought to be able to do that. And that's it this week, folks. Austin, where can people find us?
For people to locate us, they can email us with their questions or feedback or comments or recording submissions to contact us at blindandroidusers.com. They can browse our website, blindandroidusers.com. Check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/blindandroidusers. Subscribe to our mailing list, Blind Android Users, plus subscribe at groups.io. The links for Telegram and Twitter, Clubhouse will be in the show notes with all the other links. So that is it from us this week.
Well, that's it for this week, folks. Thanks very much for listening. Say bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We haven't been asking you guys to, and we would love to see us get to 1,000 subscribers this year.
Austin especially would, because he's obsessed with growth numbers.
Exactly. So
I mean, you're nearly
subscribe,
there,
hit
so-
that subscription button, and bring us up to 1,000. We're just maybe like a little over 100 shy. Thanks for listening to another clip from the Blind Android Users channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you're notified of every new material that we upload. Thanks again for listening to the Blind Android Users channel.